I never expected the old Toyota I drove for a decade to become the punchline of my own family dinner. Pulling into the paved driveway of the four-bedroom suburban house, I parked carefully near the edge of the lawn. Before I even turned off the engine, I could hear the sharp, high-pitched laugh of my future daughter-in-law, Ashley. She stood on the front porch, holding a glass of white wine, leaning against my son, Derek. "Look who finally made it," Ashley announced loudly as I stepped out, holding a bowl of potato salad. She gestured toward my car with her wine glass. "Wanda, I thought you were going to park that rust bucket down the street. It's totally ruining the aesthetic of our front yard." Derek shifted his weight, looking at his shoes. "Ash, come on. It's just a car." "It's an eyesore, Derek," she corrected, rolling her eyes. "I just don't understand why you refuse to upgrade Wanda." It's embarrassing when the neighbors walk by. I didn't cry, and I certainly didn't apologize. I simply locked the car door with a sharp beep, adjusted my cardigan, and walked up the steps. I had driven that car because it was reliable, not because it was all I could afford. My late husband and I built a comfortable life, but I never saw the need to flaunt it. Ashley, however, measured everyone's worth by the brand of their belongings. "It gets me from point A to point B," I replied smoothly, handing Derek the salad. Ashley sighed dramatically, turning her back to me as she walked into the house. "Well, just make sure it doesn't leak oil on our new driveway. We just had it power washed." I stood on the porch for a second, looking at the house. "Our new driveway," she called it. She didn't know the truth about whose name was actually on the deed. But I decided right then she was going to find out very soon. Inside the house smelled of expensive candles and roasted garlic. I wiped my shoes on the mat and headed toward the guest suite on the first floor. It was the room I always stayed in when I visited a space I had personally decorated a year ago. Before my hand even touched the doorknob, Ashley stepped into the hallway, blocking my path. "Oh, Wanda, wait," she instructed, crossing her arms. "You can't stay in there this weekend. My parents are coming in from out of town tomorrow for the engagement party preparations. They need the big room." I looked at her, keeping my expression neutral. "And where exactly am I sleeping?" Ashley pointed toward the back of the house. "We set up an air mattress in Derek's home office. It's a little cramped with his desk and the filing cabinets, but it'll do for you. You don't need much space anyway." Derek finally walked up behind her, rubbing the back of his neck. "Mom, it's just for a few nights. Her parents have bad backs, so they really need the real bed." I stared at my son. He was 30 years old, yet he stood there nodding along to whatever Ashley dictated, completely passive in his own home. He knew my knees weren't great, but he chose the path of least resistance. "An air mattress," I repeated flatly. "It's the best we can do." Ashley shrugged, clearly unbothered. "Besides, this is our house, and we have to prioritize our guests." I didn't argue. Arguing with someone who enjoys the sound of their own voice is a waste of breath. I quietly picked up my overnight bag and walked toward the cramped office. I dropped my bag on the deflated mattress and pulled out my phone. If she wanted to establish who owned what it was, time I reorganized a few things myself. Dinner that evening was a display of Ashley's absolute control. She sat at the head of the table, serving her parents, who had arrived earlier than expected. Her mother wore heavy jewelry, and her father talked loudly about his middle management job as if he ran the country. I sat quietly at the corner eating my chicken. So Wanda, Ashley's mother, began swirling her wine. "Ashley tells us you're living on a fixed income. It must be so hard managing all alone." I chewed slowly, glancing at Ashley, who looked entirely too pleased with herself. "I manage just fine," I responded. "Well, we just worry." Ashley chimed in, resting her hand on Derek's arm. "With the wedding coming up, Derek is taking on extra shifts to cover the costs. Since you know we don't have much family help from his side." Derek stared at his plate, his face flushing red. He knew perfectly well I transferred $3,000 into his account on the first of every month to help him build his savings. He just never bothered to tell his fiancée where that money came from. It's a shame, her father added. A groom's family should step up. But we understand your limitations. They were treating me like a charity case in a house I paid for. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw my napkin. Under the tablecloth, I unlocked my phone, opened my banking app, and navigated to the recurring transfers page. With 3 quick taps, I canceled the monthly deposit to Derek's account. You're right. I smiled politely, dabbing my mouth with a napkin. Limitations are important to recognize. From now on, I'll be strictly adhering to mine. Ashley beamed, completely missing the point. She thought she had won. Little did she know her lifestyle was about to experience a severe limitation of its own. The next morning, the house was chaotic. Ashley was rushing around gathering her purse and keys. Today was the day she was paying for her custom wedding dress. As I poured myself a cup of black coffee in the kitchen, she walked in and slapped a glossy bridal boutique folder on the counter right in front of me. Okay, Wanda, she commanded, tapping her manicured fingernail on the paper. I know you can't afford the venue or the catering, but Derek said you wanted to contribute something. The final payment for my dress is due today. It's $15,000. I took a slow sip of my coffee. 15,000. Yes. I mean, I expect a check right now. It's the least you can do to support your only son's wedding, she demanded, crossing her arms. Derek walked in freezing when he saw the folder. Ash, I didn't mean she would pay for the whole thing. You said she wanted to help. Ashley snapped, glaring at him before turning back to me. Well, I have an appointment in an hour. I set my mugs down. I opened my purse, pulled out my checkbook, and clicked my pen. I wrote out a check, carefully tore it from the booklet, and slid it across the marble counter. Ashley picked it up, a triumphant smirk on her face. Then she looked at the number. Her face turned purple. $500. Are you kidding me? This won't even cover the veil. That is my contribution, I answered calmly, zipping my purse. This is an insult, she yelled, throwing the check back on the counter. If you're this broke, just say it. Don't waste my time. I don't waste time, I replied, walking past her toward the front door. And I won't be wasting any more of it here today. Have a nice afternoon. I left the house, leaving her screaming at Derek in the kitchen. It took exactly 5 days for reality to knock on Derek's door. I was sitting on my back patio, enjoying the afternoon breeze with a cup of tea, when my phone rang. Derek's name flashed on the screen. Mom, what's going on? He sounded frantic. My card just got declined at the grocery store. I checked my banking app, and your transfer never came through this month. The mortgage autopay is going to bounce. I took a sip of my tea. I canceled the transfer, Derek. What? Why, you didn't even tell me? He panicked. Ashley is in the car, freaking out. We have wedding vendors to pay this week. Ashley made it very clear at dinner that she believes I don't contribute, and that you are paying for everything alone, I explained evenly. I decided not to make a liar out of my future daughter-in-law. You are on your own now. Before Derek could respond, I heard a rustling sound, and Ashley's shrill voice pierced the speaker. You can't do this. You're punishing us because you're jealous of our life. You're trying to ruin my wedding over a stupid dress. I'm not ruining anything. Ashley, I corrected, completely unbothered by her volume. I am simply adjusting my finances to match your assumptions about me. Have Derek figure it out with those extra shifts you mentioned. You are a miserable, cheap, old woman, she screamed. Don't even bother coming to the engagement party this weekend. You'll just embarrass us. Oh, I'll be there, I stated softly. But don't worry, I won't be staying long. I pressed the end call button and set the phone face down on the table. The sun felt nice on my face. I had a party to prepare for. The engagement party was held at an upscale country club downtown. It was exactly the kind of place Ashley loved, lots of marble valet parking and people looking over their shoulders to see who was wearing what. Earlier that week, I received a passive-aggressive text from Ashley. If you still plan on showing up, please park in the employee lot in the back. The photographer is taking pictures near the front entrance, and we don't want your junk car in the background. I didn't reply. Instead, I timed my arrival perfectly. At 7 o'clock, when the golden hour light was hitting the front steps, and all of Ashley's guests were gathered on the terrace with their champagne flutes, I pulled onto the main circular drive. I drove my 2012 Toyota straight up to the red carpet leading into the venue. I could see Ashley standing near the entrance in a sequined dress, her smile dropping the second she recognized my vehicle. She immediately started marching down the steps, her heels clicking aggressively against the stone. I turned off the engine, grabbed my purse, and stepped out into the warm evening air. I wore a simple, tailored navy suit. Nothing flashy. "I told you to park in the back," she hissed, stepping close so the other guest wouldn't hear. "Are you trying to humiliate me on purpose? Move this piece of trash right now." I stood my ground, adjusting my collar. "I'm a guest, Ashley. I park where the guests park." She let out a loud, theatrical sigh, turning to the small crowd watching us from the terrace. She decided to use her favorite weapon, public humiliation. "Can someone call a tow truck?" She laughed loudly, pointing at my Toyota. My mother-in-law apparently forgot where the scrapyard is. A few of her friends snickered, but their laughter was cut incredibly short by the sound of heavy tires rolling up right behind me. A sleek black extended SUV glided smoothly to a stop directly behind my Toyota. The tinted windows rolled down slightly, and then the driver's side door opened. Thomas stepped out. He wore a crisp, tailored black suit, polished shoes, and carried himself with absolute military precision. He had been my personal assistant and driver for the past 10 years, ever since my husband's company expanded internationally. The snickering on the terrace stopped entirely. Ashley frowned, taking a step back as Thomas walked directly past her, not even acknowledging her existence. He approached me, giving a slight, respectful bow of his head. "Good evening, Mrs. Daniels." Thomas greeted, his voice deep and professional. "Good evening, Thomas," I replied calmly. He held out his gloved hand. "I'll take the keys to the Toyota, ma'am. I'll have it detailed and parked safely. Would you like me to wait in the SUV, or should I return to the estate?" Ashley froze. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at Thomas, then at the massive SUV, then back at me. "Wait! Ashley?" finally stammered, her voice cracking. "Who is this? Why is he calling you, ma'am? Why is he taking your keys?" I didn't answer her immediately. I dropped my car keys into Thomas's waiting hand. Then I turned to look at my future daughter-in-law. "This is Thomas." I explained, my voice steady enough for the entire silent terrace to hear. "He is my driver." Ashley looked like she had been struck by lightning. "Your driver? You drive a 10-year-old car. You live on a fixed income. You're broke." Thomas turned his sharp gaze toward Ashley, his expression completely unreadable. "Mrs. Daniels is the sole owner of Daniels Global Logistics. I assure you, ma'am, she is anything but broke." The silence that fell over the country club entrance was absolute. Ashley's father, who had been standing on the terrace, suddenly dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the stone, breaking the silence. "Daniels Global," he choked out, walking down the steps, his face pale. "The shipping empire? That's a billion-dollar company." I smoothed my jacket, not breaking eye contact with Ashley. "My late husband founded it." I took over the board when he passed. "I drive the Toyota because he bought it for me, and I like the way it handles. I don't need to wear my bank account on my sleeve to know my own worth." Derek jogged out from the lobby, stopping dead in his tracks when he saw Thomas. Derek knew about my wealth, of course. He just never wanted to tell Ashley because he knew exactly how she would react and how she would demand access to it. "Mom," Derek mumbled, looking terrified. Ashley whipped around to face him. "You knew your mother is a billionaire, and you let me yell at her over a $500 check. You let me put her on an air mattress. You put her on an air mattress because you are a cruel person." "Ashley," I interrupted, stepping forward. "Money doesn't change character. It only reveals it. And these past few weeks have revealed exactly who you are." Ashley immediately tried to backtrack. Her posture changed entirely. The sneer was gone, replaced by a desperate, sickeningly sweet smile. "Wanda, oh my gosh, I was just so stressed with the wedding planning," she stammered, reaching out to touch my arm. "You know I didn't mean any of that. We're family. Please come inside. Let's get you a drink. You can have the VIP table." I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. I didn't pull away, but my silence made her drop it instantly. "I don't want a drink," I stated. "And I'm not staying for the party. I just came to drop off a gift." I reached into my handbag and pulled out a crisp white envelope. I held it out to Derek. He took it with shaking hands, opening the flap and pulling out the documents inside. "What is this?" Derek asked, staring at the pages. "That is a standard month-to-month lease agreement," I explained, my voice echoing slightly in the quiet evening air. Ashley leaned over to look at the paper. "A lease for what?" "For the house you live in," I clarified. "The house I purchased 3 years ago in my name. Up until now, I allowed Derek to live there rent-free while I covered the property taxes and maintenance. But since you made it clear that it is your house and you need to prioritize your own guests, things are changing." Ashley's eyes went wide. "You own the house." "I do. And effective today, the rent is $3,000 a month, fair market value for the neighborhood." I continued, not raising my voice at all. "You have 30 days to sign that lease and pay the first month. Or you can hand the keys back and find another place that suits your aesthetic." Derek looked crushed. "Mom, we can't afford $3,000 a month." "Not without your transfers." "Then I suggest you scale back on the wedding, Derek," I replied simply. "Or Ashley can get a second job. You are adults. You will figure it out." Ashley started to cry, real tears of panic this time. "You can't just kick us out. This isn't fair." "I'm not kicking you out. I'm offering you a lease," I corrected firmly. I turned to Thomas. "I'm ready to go now." Thomas nodded, opening the rear door of the SUV for me. I climbed into the spacious, quiet interior. I didn't look back at the terrace. I didn't need to. I had drawn my line in the sand, and I was finally walking away. A month passed quickly. I was sitting in the conservatory of my actual estate, a quiet property nestled behind tall iron gates an hour outside the city. The morning sun warmed the glass room as I read the financial reports Thomas had brought me. Derek didn't sign the lease. He called me 2 weeks ago, sounding exhausted. Without my financial backing, Ashley's true colors had completely taken over their relationship. When she realized there was no secret trust fund she could tap into, the wedding planning turned into a nightmare of arguments. They moved out of my house and into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment that Derek could barely afford. I didn't feel guilty. I felt light. I hired a property manager to rent out the suburban house to a nice young family with 2 children. They paid their rent on time and took good care of the lawn. My phone vibrated on the glass table. It was a text from Derek. "Ashley called off the engagement. She said she couldn't live like this. I think you were right about her. Can I come over for dinner this weekend?" I looked at the message for a long moment. I loved my son, but I wasn't going to swoop in and rescue him just because he was finally facing the consequences of his passivity. He needed to learn how to stand on his own 2 feet. I typed my reply slowly. You can come for dinner on Sunday, Derek. But you are paying for the groceries. I set the phone down and picked up my teacup. Through the window, I could see Thomas carefully washing my old Toyota in the driveway. I smiled, taking a sip of my tea. The house was quiet, my boundaries were set, and for the first time in years, I was completely at peace.